Well, hello everyone. Welcome back from Thanksgiving break. I hope you had a wonderful rest. I was very thankful for the time off to take a breather. My husband and I were at our cabin in Big Bear, and it's off the main. It's back in the forest, off of Forestry Road. And we lucked out. We got a beautiful storm on Saturday with about 6 to 8 inches of snow. It was just covered in white powder everywhere. And we were going to come back on Sunday, and a second storm came in, which was beautiful as well. But I decided not to go home until Monday. I took a mental health day and headed back Monday afternoon. So that was a wonderful break and just spending a little time to catch up now. And I know some of you were coming back in from being out of town, so I thought I would just go ahead and post the video on Wednesday. I'll be grading tonight and tomorrow anything that hasn't been graded, so please don't stress about that. I don't want you worrying if there's points missing or something. For people that have done extra credit by going to the symposium, that's the last grade that I will put in before I finish grading in week 8. But, you know, if you see something that hasn't been graded by week 8, then yes, please say something. But up until then, please don't worry. You're all doing fine. And I will contact you privately if for some reason you're not. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this week. Week 6, you're going to be reading Chapter 8 in Ornstein, and you're looking at the topics of curriculum implementation and curriculum stakeholders. And we're looking at stakeholders, motivation factors, school climate, and we're also looking at formative and summative assessment. And so I don't want to talk too long about this. I don't like to get long-winded on these videos, but I do want to talk about a couple things. When I was thinking about school climate, teaching this to you this time, I was thinking about the big uproar a few years back, and I pulled up the article. It was actually 2015, about this same time, and it says U.S. school stops teaching Huckleberry Finn because of use of the N-word, and this was a school district in Philadelphia. And what was interesting about this case is that the school is guided by Quaker philosophy. And the Philadelphia Inquirer reported, and peaceful resolution of conflicts, seeking truth, and collaboration are key aspects of its operation. And the school principal and the community felt that this book, they were in a high African American population of the area, that this was doing more damage to the community, teaching this book in the classroom than good. And some people took great offense to that and felt that they were banning literature, but at the same time, they weren't banning literature. The principal said that, no, the book would be in the library and that students would be able to check it out in the library and people would be able to read it. And of course, it was in the public library. It was just that they, as the stakeholders of that school, the students, the teachers, the principals, the community felt that it just wasn't the best fit for their curriculum. So when we look at things like this, school climate, it definitely has a motivational factor for students. And if your students, if a predominantly large group of your students are struggling with something like this, then it is something that we as educational stakeholders need to look at. And for this school, this was the best fit for their curriculum. So anyways, I'm going to put the article up in announcements. If you missed that, I thought you might like to take a look at it and just see what you thought. Okay, let me pull up. I've got all my little boxes here for you. Okay, and then I just wanted to quickly go over formative and summative assessments. I'm sure most of you know what they are if you've been in the classroom for a while. If you're outside of the classroom, you might use these in a different way. But basically, remember that the goal of formative assessment is to monitor student learning and to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by instructors to improve their teaching. These are low stakes, low point value. It's basically things that we're looking at to see, to monitor, are our students able to move forward? Or do we need to reteach a concept? Is the whole class moving along and maybe there's just a couple people that you may need to talk to, one-on-one? today my students are currently learning how to use Chromebooks, and the learning curve is great because some people are very computer literate. Students are very computer literate, know how to move through it very quickly, and some of them it takes a little bit longer. And so I'm constantly just doing formative assessments with them, monitoring what's going on, walking around the room, looking at computer screens, teaching as I go, and basically checking at the end of each class, getting some type of feedback, or asking them to identify the main point of a lecture, or writing a quick note about the understanding of the topic, or an email what you might be struggling with. And that's how I assess what's going to be best for the class and what I have to continue to work on. A summative assessment is, of course, assessment that's to evaluate student learning at the end of an instructional unit by comparing it against some standard or benchmark. And these are usually high stakes or high point value, midterm exams, final projects, paper, recitals, something like that, where they have to prove that they have met their goals, met their standard. And we see this in education. We're all working for districts that are regulated with Common Core and standards, and most of us have some type of mid-year assessment or end-of-the-year assessment, and we may have, like in English, we may have selections that we read and little unit tests for that are building up to a larger assessment that is really going to show us that this student is able to, do this work, understands this work, and is ready to move on. Okay. Now, that comes back to motivation with students. We see this all the time with curriculum. Some students, and I'm sure you know this as well, but I'm going to talk about it just briefly. We know that there's two different kinds of motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. And intrinsic motivation comes from within, is associated with, joy or passion of a task, and gives the learner, rather than any reward it brings, just a joy in doing it. And today we often talk about that as being, grit or drive. Students that really love to learn and want to move forward, and they are happy to be at school, and that motivates them. Just the joy of doing it motivates them. And then there's extrinsic motivation, which of course is something to do with external factors associated with the task, such as assessment. And external factors can also be related to instructional strategies or learning conditions, educational technologies, things like that. But extrinsic is, when you're looking at motivation, like, you need to learn this so that you pass this test, or you need to learn this so that you can go on to advanced choir or advanced jazz band, or you need to be able to pass this class so that you can graduate. And so we're looking at both of those things when we're looking at engaging a learner. And of course, we want students to have that joy and passion for education. We want to give them something when we teach that motivates them, that they see our joy and our passion and they come to love it. Whatever subject we may teach. But there's also those extrinsic motivators that keep them on task if they are struggling with something like that, because they do most of the time want to graduate or move on and not be held back in a class or not go to summer school. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about is the curriculum stakeholders, because there's all different curriculum stakeholders. There's all different areas of this. And of course, when you're looking at curriculum stakeholders, give me 1 second. My computer has just froze with my notes. And you're going to hear band practicing starting. But remember, stakeholders are individuals or institutions that are interested in the curriculum. And when we're looking at stakeholders, we have to start with the student. Students are highly involved because we have to get the students engaged in this type of curriculum. And if curriculum is too difficult for a student, you're going to lose everybody. And if it's too easy for a student, then you're looking at discipline problems and boredom and all sorts of things. So you have to find that fine line between having curriculum that they know that we have to bring them through so that they can advance, but not too difficult where they're going to disengage, and not archaic, and not something like the school in Philadelphia found that was causing great distress for the entire 11th grade in this case, and the teaching staff as well as the community. And of course, when we're developing curriculum, our final question should be, have students learned? And if not, then we have to consider what we're going to do to fix that. So the next area we're looking at is teachers as stakeholders. And we're the people who plan and design and teach and implement and evaluate. And so we have a lot of input as to what's going on with curriculum. Believe it or not, and a lot of people don't think so, but you have to remember that we sit on textbook committees. We are involved in unions. We are involved in all different things that have effects on what we teach and how we teach. Now, once we get the information, we become, basically facilitators of that information. And we have to decide how best to get that out to the learner. One of the things that I like about the new English textbook is that they remember to leave the teacher in the new Pearson book that we have. They have all of our curriculum, of course, laid out based on Common Core and the standards that we need to meet. But then when you're talking about a specific topic, they will have some piece of literature that you can read or an article, and then it states, or an article or a piece of literature that you think might fit best in this unit, or a film that you might think fits best in the unit. And it gives the teacher a chance to look at their students, know what will work for them, and move them forward with kind of their own stamp on this particular curriculum. Okay, just moving on through my notes. Give me a moment. Okay, and before I go off from teachers, it comes back when you're modifying curriculum or you're trying to decide what to implement or what you're not going to implement. You have to look at what your state has decided, what your district has decided, what your principals expect, what your parents expect, what your students need before you make those changes. And then, of course, we have our school leaders, which are people like the people that may implement all of what's going on in the SLC coordinators, the assistant principals, the principals, the curriculum managers. There might be somebody specific, like a lead teacher that's doing curriculum above a department head that's going around from class to class. And they have important roles in this as stakeholders as well, because they have to be able to assist teachers and students in implementing this curriculum and getting this curriculum. And if there's not good communication with the curricular team, then we have problems. Things start to fall apart. And somebody today at my school was talking about, we'd had a lot of pep rallies, and they were feeling that their instructional minutes were not being protected. So when you have somebody that's feeling that way, then they often become frustrated and they feel that their lessons are fragmented by these interruptions, and then that causes problems with implementation. So it's very important that principals know these things and take this into consideration. Excuse me for one moment. I could hear them tuning the drums. Okay. Also, they need to be able to be the person, they're the go-between that convinces the parents of the merits of any type of new curriculum or what we're implementing or what we're doing. And if you have a good principal, they'll often protect you as a teacher as well, so that when you make specific choices and somebody comes back and fusses about it, they can take the time to explain to the teacher exactly why you're doing what you're doing related to the school and our needs, and why this particular curriculum is important. Now, this has been a few years. I haven't had any problems this year, but a few years ago I had a parent who did not want their child to read Catcher in the Rye in 11th grade, which always surprises me, but it is still one of the top banned books in the United States. And so my principal spoke to them and found out their reasons why, and in this case it was specific religious beliefs. And so he asked me, what I wanted to do about it, and I said, well, I would like to be able to talk to the parent with you and see if maybe they would be willing for the child to look at this text, but look at into relation as to what they feel in this book should be banned or challenged based on their religious beliefs. And when I explained it that way, the parent really liked the idea of their student looking at literature from that. So I think that in that case, they were worried that maybe we were pushing an agenda that didn't fit into their family beliefs, into their morals, to their religious aspects of their life. And when we let them, when I chose to allow it being implemented a certain way, and when my principal backed it and explained it, we had complete parent support. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, but in this case, it did. And so you might want to, when you're designing curriculum or thinking about curriculum and you're teaching something, a very hard topic, you may want to think about how you are going to, implement this curriculum in a way that parents will understand why you're doing it, and also have your conversation ready for a parent that may have problems with it. And of course, that brings me to parents, which I was already talking about. We need to learn to listen to parent concerns. Parents are very important to education. We find that schools that have high parent involvement, there's less problems with the school. What else? Let me give you a couple more. And of course, the home is an extension of the school environment. We know that. And if you want to have a parent on your side and be able to understand why, if a student's doing homework and a parent's helping them, they need to know the why, the reasons for why you're doing what you're doing sometimes, on the bigger topics. And I have found that for me, that's where the flipped classroom really comes in handy, is that by making YouTube videos for my students and my parents, explaining what we're doing in class, why we're doing it in class, how we're moving forward, by making them, making their position as stakeholder even stronger, by bringing them into my thoughts on why I'm crafting this curriculum the way I am, that we have a more cohesive unit to teach our students, to drive their education forward, instead of, fragments everywhere. Okay. And of course, the other stakeholders in curriculum implementation and development are government agencies, which you already know, local government and Department of Ed and such. And also, we have stakeholders that are, it could be a non-government agencies such as, professional organizations that we're involved in, or bank foundations, or Pearson Publishing, publishing companies. Those types of things can have effects as well, depending on what they're willing to give to a school district and how they're willing to support a school district. So that's about all I'm going to talk about tonight, because I'm already at 20 minutes and Opal's starting to get crazy. So it should be a very easy week for you. Like I said, just the one chapter in Ornstein. You've got your discussion board. And if you have any questions, please contact me. And I hope you have a good night. And I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.